It's nice to see you guys.
All right, everyone. Hi. I am on a different computer because my computer would not let Zoom start. I was working on it for the last, for quite a little while. So what you have now is just a picture of a telephone. That's me. And however, it also does say that John Chambers as host is there. So
We're a bunch of mature people using technology.
Yeah, exactly right. Hang on, let me go over to the other computer and see if it's actually doing something.
Hi, Marty. Oh, man.
Well, it doesn't seem to be liking what I'm doing over there, so I'm afraid we're stuck with me right here. So you guys can hear me?
Yes.
I'm on
Yes,
the
I
phone.
can.
Okay, I'm on the phone.
Yes, I can.
Howard
Okay,
hears you.
good. I can see you guys great, but you can't see me because I don't have a camera and I don't have a microphone.
Oh no. All right.
All right, so well, I'm going to go. I have to go grab a copy of the Constitution because I don't even know that I have one on this computer. I know for sure I don't have my book on this computer.
Two of the viewers have their copy, John.
Yeah, you guys. Oh, that's right. But let me do this. All right. Yeah. Bring one up so I can share it with you. So here we go. So I'm going to share this now. And everybody can see the Section 2 House of Representatives, right?
Yes, I can.
Okay. All right, so let's do a review as we start. So who can tell me what is a republic? Joel, you look like you're just itching to tell me.
All right, I was going to jump in, but you grabbed me. All right, a republic is a combination of the three natural forms of government of a monarchy, an aristocracy, and a democracy. So it is not a natural form of government, but the combination of the three, with the idea that they balance the powers, and none of those one of those three different branches or have control over the other two, and they all ideally work together for the greatest good for the American citizenry.
Good. All right. Anybody have anything you'd like to add to that? All right, we have Bob Zink is joining us now. And so since we have the three natural forms of government, and a republic is made up of the three natural forms of government, Article 1 has to do with one of those natural forms of government. It's this one right here. Article 1 talks about Congress, which is the legislative power. It is the branch that is the democratic part of the government. And then we have Article 2, which deals with the executive branch. And of the three types of government, monarchy, aristocracy, and democracy, which branch does Article 2 cover of those? What kind of government is in Article 2, the executive branch?
That would be the monarchy.
Okay, good. You agree, Howard? Howard is being quiet. Okay. Kevin, however, who got a good night's sleep last night,
Oh,
how about
yes, thank you. Yes,
Well,
thank you.
so do you agree that that the monarchy is Article 2, the executive power?
Yes.
Okay, very good. And Article 3 deals with the third branch of government, which is the judicial power. And can anyone tell me, well, since the only one we have left is aristocracy, how is the judicial power, how are the courts a kind of an aristocracy? How are they the aristocratic form of government? Anybody have any ideas on that?
Well, the aristocracy, the idea was that they took care of other people who weren't able to take care of themselves. So the analogy or the train of thought being that the courts and the Supreme Court, the judges watch out for the little guy to make sure that the big guys with more money or more power don't necessarily quash them and take away their rights.
Good. Does that make sense to everybody?
Mm-hmm.
Good. All right, so now what could Article 4 possibly be about? Let's say that's where we are up to is now Article 4. So what could Article 4 possibly be about? Well,
It's about agreements.
okay. Okay. Anybody ever heard of the federal government?
I think so.
Okay, good, good. Well, the federal government, you know, is actually a misnomer. It's an incorrect name, because actually the reason that we call the national government, the reason that we call it the federal government is because during or at the time of the Civil War or the War of Northern Aggression, whichever you want to call it, the Confederates were on one side, and on the other side they called them, well, not the United Statesians. They had to call them something different, and what they called them was these are the federal troops. These are the troops that aren't the Confederate troops. These are the federal troops. And so the people that ran the federal troops was the federal government. So it started being called the federal government at that time.
But John, at the very beginning, there were the Federalists against the, whatever the other party was, I don't remember, the Republicans or something. Doesn't it go back that far, or the different?
No, not quite. The reason those were called the Federalists was because they wanted to have this, and what they called it was a federal system of governments, because you had all of the state governments, and that they were giving them, and they were entrusting, because the word federal comes from the Latin federis, which has to do with trust, or to have fidelity to something, and they were entrusting this national government to do certain functions for the state governments, but the state governments also maintained their own powers. So they were governments themselves, and we also had this other national government which took care of certain things, so that it was recognized then that they had this federal system of governments. And in the Civil War is when they started. The naming started to become that we had, quote, the federal government, because they were fighting to maintain the federal system of governments, whereas the other side was the Confederation. And so that was how you were making this distinguishment between those two. So the federal government then became the federal government, and that was known as the national, or that was, that's the name that came to be on the national government. But it always has been a federal system of governments. So if you're going to have a republic, and it has on the national level, it has partially aristocracy and partially democracy and partially monarchy. You also have to make some kind of conditions, some kind of definition of how the states fit into it, because they are part of the federal system. And that is what Article 4 is. It defines how the states, what the states have to do in this federal system, what the states have to do in this federal system. Does anybody have comment on that, or does that make sense, or does that not make sense, or?
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate the explanation on the history of the word, and yes, it makes sense on what you're saying on Article 4 also.
Okay, good. Bob, haven't heard much from you. Mr. Zink?
I'm with you.
Okay, all right. And Howard, you are unmuted.
Yes.
And you have any thoughts on this? I know you always have thoughts.
Well, I was unable to get Teresa on. She's got this old XP, and it's questionable whether Zoom will load onto it. And we finally decided to talk later after the meeting. So real quick, what did you guys just cover? Because I'm coming in late.
All
Was
right.
it section one there, John?
No, we haven't started that yet.
No, not yet. Not yet. We did the review, which was what is a republic, and that's basically the three natural forms of government combined together into a construct, which is what a republic is. So in the Constitution, they define a republic. Article 1 has to do with the democratic the democratic branch of the government. Article 2 has the monarchy branch of the government. Article 3 has to do with the aristocracy branch of the government. Then what could possibly be Article 4? And I was talking about that the federal government, what we call the federal government, is actually a misnomer. What it originally was a federal system of governments, because it was the states entrusting the national government to do certain things for it. And if you're going to now define what this republic is, you are going to define Article 1, Article 2, Article 3 are the three branches of the national government. Then you're going to have an extra piece which defines the relationship of the states to each other and to the national government. And that's what Article is about.
Okay. I wanted to use the word hybrid to describe the Constitution here.
Hybrid between what?
Well, between different styles or modes or of governance, democracy, aristocracy, monarchy. In other words, hybrid. It's like a hybrid
Okay.
system. Checks and balances and all that.
That's fine, but the shorthand word for that hybrid is the word republic.
Maybe I'll have to look into.
Okay. You got my little book on the definition of republic. I know you do. Right, Howard?
He's looking into it.
Yeah.
Yes, he is looking into it. All right, so we're going to talk about now. We're going to talk about the different the relationship of the relationship of the states to the national government and to each other. And I'm going to start. I want to start with Kevin.
Yes, sir.
Kevin, so on your screen should be Article 4, Section 1.
Okay. Full faith and credit shall be given in each state to the public acts, records, and judicial proceedings of every other state.
Okay,
And the
good. Okay, that's good. Thank you. Sorry, I didn't warn you that I was going to probably be stopping you. Okay. So this, in this way, a citizen can move from one state to another and still own his car. You know, he bought a car in Florida and he moves to Oregon, and this piece of paper that says that he owns this car is good in Oregon, just like it was in California or in Florida. However, Congress, the National Congress, is going to it has a little bit of a say in that. So, Kevin, go ahead and finish that.
Okay. And the Congress made by general laws prescribe the manner in which such acts, records, and proceedings shall be proved, and the effect thereof.
Right. So, the Congress could say that in order to have your bill of sale for your car be valid in any state, it has to have a notary public. A notary has to sign it, for instance. I mean, they could do that. I don't think they have, but in that way, then all the states would recognize each other's public acts, records, and judicial proceedings, and have some predictability and some ability to recognize that another state has made a particular act. There are some differences in these things because some states have different laws for marriages and different laws for divorces. Although the Supreme Court has recently stepped in with 2015 saying same-sex marriage is good in every state, so that particular difference from state to state has been erased by the Supreme Court. I imagine you could probably think of some other kinds of things like this that are different from state to state. I can't think of any off the top of my head. Does anybody have any idea?
Cannabis laws?
What's that?
Cannabis.
Cannabis, yeah, thank you, excellent, excellent. And so there have been, yeah, and one of the things that, now, but there is a national proscription against it, which is based actually on treaty, which we'll get into when we get down to Article 6. But each state has different ideas on cannabis. One of the things that the Congress has done on that is they've made hemp legal in all states. So Congress stepped in on that one and said that we're going to make it legal in all states. Any other thoughts on that before we move on? Hearing no objection, we will move on. All right, Marty.
Okay, section 2. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, good. The citizens of each state shall be entitled to all privileges and immunities of citizens in the several states.
Good. So this means that if you are a citizen in Florida, you can become a citizen in Oregon. Or if Kevin moves to Florida and he's a citizen in Oregon, he can continue to be a citizen and have all of the privileges and immunities when he moves to Florida immediately. He doesn't have to go through some kind of rigorous something or other to become a citizen of the next state. That there will be certain residence requirements and a few things like that, just to make sure that you're not there for 2 days and then leave and and whatever. But other than that, you have all privileges and immunities.
Yeah, they should have made learning the Constitution. When you change states, you need to do it all over again.
Well, I know that there are people in Oregon that wanted to make it that way.
Yeah.
It seems that I have, okay.
I would love to be able to vote from Florida this year.
Come on down.
My vote may actually count then.
I know.
Somebody, I think wants to chat with me, but I don't know what it is, and I'd rather.
It's Howard's asking if you can hear him.
Oh, Howard. No, I can't hear you, Howard. Thank you, Bob.
Mm-hmm.
Can't hear you, Howard, and you are not muted, so I don't know. There's something else going on.
He's going to reboot.
Okay, he's gonna reboot.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you, my chat readers. I appreciate it. All right. Okay, so you see this. In order to join this union, the states have to be willing to treat each other equally. So that this is one of the things that when you join up, you're going to entitle that when somebody moves to your state, that all the privileges and immunities of a citizen from some other state is now they now have them in yours as well. And the next one is Bob. You want to read this one? There probably will be a point where I stop you on this one.
Okay. A person charged in any state with treason, felony, or other crime who shall flee from justice and be found in another state shall, on demand of the executive authority of the state from which he fled, be delivered up to and be removed to the state having jurisdiction of the crime.
Good. And that's extradition. That is to make sure that you don't have Nevada doesn't become a safe haven for anyone who robs banks or something, no, if he's committed a crime in Illinois and he's found in Nevada, you send him back to Illinois. And so everybody signs, all the states have to sign on and agree that they're going to do that. Now, the next one is a bit more um, what we might call troublesome.
Mhm.
So we're going to let Joel start this one. I'll probably stop you somewhere along the line.
And I apologize, I may have to leave abruptly, so if I do that, I'll see you next week. But anyways, no person
Okay.
held to service or labor in one state under the laws thereof, escaping into another shall, in consequence of any law or regulation therein, be discharged from such service or labor, but shall be delivered up on claim of the party to whom such service or labor may be due.
Slavery laws, huh?
That was particularly aimed at slavery, but actually it also had to do with indentured servitude, any
That's
kind of
true.
indentured servitude, which from the 1600s to about 1705 was termed slavery. That when you came over on, when you signed yourself into servitude for 7 or 10 years or whatever it was, in order to gain passage from
Ireland.
some horrible existence in England or Ireland, and then landed in one of the colonies. You had to serve that service, but if you escaped from that service that you were in Virginia, and they found you in Maryland, they would deliver you back to Virginia because you still had another 2 or 3 years on your contract, because basically it was a contract, which is different than crime, because the second clause there had to do with treason, bribery, or other crimes. It had to do with criminal actions. In this one, it's talking about if you have a contract and you don't fulfill the contract, but you go off to some other state, they can send you back to the state that you were in.
They shall be delivered, not they can. They shall be delivered.
Shall be delivered, right. And what that did was it made and back in 1650, 1660, when you sold yourself into bondage to gain passage to the New World, you signed up for 7 years or so, and if you escaped to some other place, they had to if you broke your contract, you could be brought back. And what they're saying here is you have to be brought back. Now, from 1700 up until 1787, when they wrote this, we had gotten into slavery for life, and that then there were a number of laws that were passed that made the children of those who are slaves for life are also slaves for life. Pretty despicable, but this included those people as well, because they were held to service or labor in one state. And it was this is one of the things that this is one of the main things that the Civil War was fought over, because in the 1850s, Congress passed the Fugitive Slave Law, which made it mandatory and made various commissions and so on and so forth to administer this particular activity. And the Underground Railroad, Howard's coming back, okay. The Underground Railroad tried to go against that, and a number of northern states, Wisconsin, Michigan, and those were ready to secede from the Union because of the fugitive slave laws. They wanted to have no part of this whole thing. So there was quite a history of people wanting to secede, people wanting to get out of it because of the horrible things that the other side was doing. And this was one of the main causes of that. And finally, we fought a civil war over this thing, and got rid of slavery.
So why is this one
So-
troubling to you though, John?
Say that?
What, you
I'm
said
sorry?
initially that this one is troubling to you.
It was trouble. All I was saying was it was trouble.
Oh,
Not-
I'm
not-
sorry. I thought you said troubling to you.
Not that it was troubling to me. It caused a lot of trouble.
Right,
And
right.
that's what the Civil War
Yes, that I
hinged
understand.
on. This particular paragraph right here.
Okay.
All right. Now, section 3. Let's see who's up.
Howard.
Howard. Can you hear us, Howard?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
indeed. Yes,
Awesome.
indeed.
Okay.
All right, so what I'd like you to do section 3, the first clause there.
Okay. Section 3, new states may be admitted by the Congress into this union, but no new state shall be formed or erected within the jurisdiction of any other state.
Okay, all right, we'll just halt it here. So they are saying we are going to have new states. There's not just the 13 of us. There's going to be more. We know there are going to be more. And one of the prime mechanisms they had for that was the Northwest ordinances in the Northwest Territories, where the original 13 states, many of them had tracts of land out west that they could not expand into. So they sold to, or actually gave them to the national government to be sold, and then the money from that was going to pay off the debt from the War for Independence. And what they were going to do with that land was they were going to sell it to settlers. Then when there got to be enough settlers in a place, then those settlers could form up a government within themselves, become a state, and then apply to Congress to join the Union. So here we're saying new states can be admitted into the Union, and Congress is the one that admits them. But no new state will be formed or erected within the jurisdiction of any other state, nor any state be formed by the jurisdiction of two. Well, I'm sorry, I'm starting to get into. Go ahead, Howard. Go ahead and start this again from. But no new state shall be formed.
But no new states shall be formed or erected within the jurisdiction of any other state.
Good. Okay, so if we had Virginia, then no new state is going to come from. You're not going to some piece out of the middle of Virginia and call it West Virginia. Oh my goodness. Well, they actually did do that during the Civil War. However, it wasn't a brand new thought, because they did do that also. The state of Maine used to be Massachusetts, and they formed a new state out of Maine because the people that were there, it was too far distant, and they had a state between them. You know, they had New Hampshire was between them, between these two parts of Massachusetts. It didn't make sense to have them both be there. Also, Vermont, if I'm doing that right, Vermont, as I recollect, thinking of the map, Vermont cleaved off from New York. It used to be part of New York, so it became its own state as well.
You're correct.
Okay, good. Thank you. No new state shall be formed or erected within the jurisdiction of any other state. So we know that that's not quite true. So there's got to be an out here somewhere. So go ahead and continue reading. Nor any state.
Could I mention something here?
Yeah, go ahead.
The West Virginia issue was later settled by the U.S. Supreme Court in about the 1870s, maybe late 1870s. And the Supreme Court decided that, hey, here's another part of the Constitution that is inapplicable. Also, to get reelected, Lincoln saw to it that Nevada was given statehood in so that it could vote for him in the Electoral College. They were concerned about that 1864 election quite a bit. So anyway,
Okay. All right. Well, good.
No-
Okay.
nor-
Nor
any
state.
state be formed by the jurisdiction of two or more states or parts of states without the consent of the legislatures of the states concerned as well as of the Congress.
Good. So if you have, so for instance,
State of
in
Jefferson.
between, what's that?
State
Amen.
of Jefferson.
State of Jefferson. Exactly right. Thank you very much. That's some northern California counties and some southern Oregon counties want to get together and call themselves the state of Jefferson. In order to do that, they're going to have to get the consent of the legislature in Sacramento and in Salem to say, yeah, okay, you can go be your own state, and then you have to get
Congressional approval.
approval from Congress as well. So I'm sure with Vermont and Maine, that those were with the consent of the legislature involved. And okay, any comments on that?
No?
All right. Good. Whose turn is it? I
And Kevin.
show on my list that Kevin is up next. You there, Kevin? Yes, you are there. I know you're there. I see you.
Yes. You want me to start with section 3?
Paragraph
the
2.
Congress-
Paragraph 2.
Yeah.
The Congress shall have power to dispose of and make all needful rules and regulations respecting the territory or other property belonging to the United States. And
Good,
nothing.
Okay. This is a very important piece of the Constitution. What it assumes is that any properties that Congress has is going to be disposed of. And they knew that for the Northwest Territories because those were specifically given to the United States in order to form new states. And so the Congress would not have power over them anymore. They would be states in their own right. It was also expected in the Louisiana area that people were going to come into the Louisiana Territory and were going to settle it and make new states. And the problem, and that is why it's written dispose of. Now, in 1976, Congress passed a law. It's called FLIPMA, which is it's a Managed Act. It has to do with the lands, and it's the FLPMA is the name of it, which talks about we in Congress are not going to dispose of property. What we're going to do is we're going to hold on to it because we believe that when it's in our power, it's better than if it is in private hands or in state hands. And there are a number of people that don't like this, and it comes back to the definition of dispose of. And dispose of, because what they're doing is they're saying, we are going to dispose this property. We're going to set it up to be a certain way, and we're going to make national forests and national monuments and wilderness areas and all kinds of things like this, and we are disposing it in this way. But dispose of, going all the way back to the Constitution here, and even before that, dispose of is an idiom which means to get rid of. So there are people that argue, no, Congress is supposed to get rid of those properties, and they're going to make any needful rules and regulations in order to dispose of that property. And this is what the problem with the the sagebrush wars and the Bundys and all of the things that are going on in the West and farmers grazing lands and all that sort of thing. The problem with having the Congress get rid of this property is that they had it and they were intending to sell it, but there's some property that they just can't sell. It's just like it's all rocks and desert. Nobody wants to buy it. So what are they going to do with it? So they make it into, national sanctuaries and stuff like that, which is understandable that they do that, but there are those who say that they have overstepped their bounds and that FLIPMA does that, the law of 1976.
Question, John.
What's that?
Question. Is
Yeah,
this
sure.
where things like Puerto Rico come into being? Because
Puerto Rico is a territory. Yes, that's right.
Okay, because I had a situation this week where fellow from Puerto Rico, I mean, they come over here and they can vote and they can live here apparently, and they're citizens.
Uh-huh.
But what they don't contribute anything to us, and we shouldn't have them. They should be their own. They should be self-sufficient somewhere else, right?
Well, what, are you saying that? So you have a Puerto Rican who moved into your neighborhood and is on welfare? Is that the problem?
No, not on welfare, but he's going to vote to disintegrate our country, which I don't like. And I gave him the thing about the presidency from your book, and he didn't want anything to do with it, But the thing is, I was just like, well, how come somebody from Puerto Rico can move over here and vote without going through naturalization or without going through immigration stuff?
It depends. Congress has undoubtedly made laws about that, and has allowed that in the same way that back in the 1920s they said that all Native American Indians are citizens of the United States. Up until that time, they were not.
Well, they're not.
Right?
They have their own territory.
But then that's right, because they have their own nations. But they have by law then said, no, we're going to treat them as citizens. They are citizens also, and they could very well have done the same thing with Puerto Rico. They may have done the same thing with Samoa and Guam too. I don't know.
Could I chime in here?
Please.
Yeah, Howard.
Okay. Puerto Rico was conquered by the United States in 1898.
Right, part of the Spanish-American War.
Yeah, the Spanish-American War, exactly. We got the Philippines, we got some of those Pacific territories, also some later from World War I.
Okay,
the relationship of Puerto Rico to the United States is it's a commonwealth. They do not have to pay federal taxes, nor can they vote if they are residents of Puerto Rico. So they got a pretty good deal. Your neighbor, if it makes you feel any better, when he votes, he gets to pay federal taxes too. Perhaps he has not quite added that up. I might be willing to trade my vote for no federal taxes, to tell you the truth, but to be considered. So anyway, every few years, about every 20 or so years, they have a referendum in Puerto Rico to decide whether they want to become a part of the United States, have their own state, leave and become independent, or maintain their Commonwealth status with the mainland. And they always vote to maintain the status quo, which is very smart of them, actually, in
Yeah,
my view.
but per here, Congress shall have the power to dispose of that. We shouldn't have these territories.
Oh, yes. Congress has to decide to let Puerto Rico go be its
Puerto
own
Rico.
state or its own country. Congress gets to have the ultimate decision on that. And they used to get pretty excited about independence. There were some Puerto Ricans who in 1948 shot up the Congress trying to assassinate them representatives because they wanted their independence, damn it. And
Right.
one could
Yeah.
sympathize with that, perhaps. Oh, Clinton pardoned them, by the way.
Yeah,
Those-
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't know. The question of Puerto Rico is, yes, it is a territory, and Congress has the power to dispose of it. And
Yes.
at this point, they haven't. But they have also a lot of tracts of land out in the West that they
Right.
can't sell. So they've decided to keep it also. Okay, and then just finishing this, I think we're at the point of, Kevin, were you reading?
Yeah.
Nothing in the
Can
Constitution?
I throw something out there in regards to the dispose of and the land thing?
Yeah,
Mhm.
I would just encourage all of us to Google and look at some of the maps of just how much land we're talking about.
Oh, it's a
very
lot.
significant amount of land.
It's a lot.
For
I
instance,
know.
for instance, in
My
the
county is 67% is fed.
exactly, that's exactly what I was about ready to say. Is the county where John and I live, 67% of the land is owned by the federal government, and there is a housing shortage, and there is an economy that could benefit from people building houses, et cetera, et cetera. So my position is, I think some of that land needs to be looked at and put back into the private sector where it can become.
Does that include national parks?
Yeah.
No, not all
What?
of it needs to be parks. I mean, some of it can be parks, but some
Does
of
it
it.
include national parks? I mean, that's 67%.
No.
No.
Most of it is what is called O and C land,
O and C
which is
land.
an entire other story.
Yeah, it used to be railroad land.
Yeah, it
Really?
used to be railroad land, and that's a long story and a lovely story, but we don't have time for it
Yeah,
right now.
no, I'm not saying we need to deliberate that, but people should know.
I know.
how much
No,
of it-
I was just letting Bob down
Oh,
gently.
okay. All right. I mean, over half your county is occupied, that's what makes people talk about the state of Jefferson and becoming part of Idaho.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly right, because yeah.
All right.
Okay,
And nothing in this Constitution shall be so construed as to prejudice any claims of the United States or of any particular state.
good, because there were a number of different states that claimed different things, and the United States claimed different things, and so this Constitution isn't going to mess any of those things up. It's just however those come out is how those come out. All right. So coming back now, Marty, I think we're going to do section 4 of this.
Okay, the United States shall guarantee to every state in this union a republican form of government and shall protect each of them against invasion and on application of the legislature or of the executive when the legislature cannot be convened against domestic violence.
Oh my.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
This is part of the relationship of the national government
To
the state governments. This is part of the federis, the trust between them, is that the state's going to have a republican form of government. They shall be protected against invasion, and and on the application from the legislature against domestic violence. So here in the Constitution it says if someone wants to come in and if let's just say the president wants to say wants to put down a rebellion in a state, the government has to ask for it. That's in section 4 here.
application.
However, the insurrection law, which is slightly
Later.
different, which has to do with the calling forth of the militia, says you don't have to have the application of the legislature or the executive. You can just do it. All right, so that's section 4. This is that's Article 4. This is the relationship of the states to the national government, and this is the basis and forms what is the federal system of governments is defined in these 4 sections right here. I think we've gone long enough and had enough trouble getting into this to begin with that I'm just going to let this one be done, if that's all right. And next time we'll do Article 5. Any comments or thoughts or anything before I close this thing down?
I'm amazed at how these guys wrote this, and they didn't mince a lot of words. It's incredible. This thing is not very long, but it's an incredible document.
I know.
Yes, and they tried to think of everything, but in broad enough terms, so that as things kind of filled in, people could continue to make adjustments and be able to live with it, like a suit of clothes that's not so heavily starched you can't fit into them.
How long did it take them to write this? I should know that, but I don't.
Well, the Constitutional Convention started in May of '87. Some of the people didn't show up until towards the end of May of 1787, and they had this. They signed this on September 17th. Mm-hmm. Yay! 3 days ago.
Wow.
Yay! They signed it on the September 17th in 1787. So that was what, 5 months?
Yep.
That was
amazing.
May, July, August, September. Yeah, 5
Those
months.
Guys were so smart.
4.5 months, 5 months. Well, they were well educated.
Normally, when you have that many people trying to get something done, they never agree on it, so it takes forever.
Well, there was a lot of disagreement in this, but they also recognized that they had to get this and get it as right as they possibly could, because otherwise they would be swallowed back up by Britain. They would be swallowed back up if France or Germany or Spain ever decided they would come and wanted the riches of the New World. They would get hammered unless they could all pull their weight and get together. So they were kind of under the gun to do it, to get it done. So yeah, but you're absolutely right. It is rather remarkable.
Can't see our Congress doing anything that fast, even if they're under the gun.
Or sane.
Yes. No comment. Thank you.
What was the question again? I didn't hear the question.
I wouldn't.
No, it wasn't a question. It was an observation that that the guys who put this together were pretty smart. We're working together and trying to get something done, and it's a vast difference to the Congress that we have today.
Ay.
Okay.
I wanted to say, me, please.
What?
I'm impressed with the focus. I mean, this is a big deal, this section, and I'm sorry I had such a hard time getting into it, given my friend's computer troubles and all that, delaying my entry into the communication cycle. But this really, again, emphasizes the fact that it is a compact of the states. It's not a big federal government. I am an American, y'all. I'm a Californian, God help me. But
state of California.
Yeah. So this again emphasizes the balance of power. This section, to me, this article emphasizes the separation of powers and the checks and the balances, and how the president can't just go wildly into Oregon and set things aright. The Lord knows we need, well, we need that perhaps done in What is that
Portland.
city? Portland.
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 And
So
Seattle.
anyway, that's my comment.
All
It-
right.
Might be interesting to review a little more Article 3, because I was reading before class, I was reading the pages in there about the different types of federal governments and stuff. But I digress. That's my
Okay.
input. Thank you all for listening.
All right.
Ciao.
Thank you, Howard.
Over and out.
Thank you. All right. And if there are no further comments, I won't close this thing down. How's that sound?
Sounds
Have a
good.
great week. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Oh,
Talk to
man.
y'all later.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.